Hello, lovely souls, and welcome to One. Let's talk. In today's episode, I want to talk to you about the infamous ego. The ego that has gained quite the notorious reputation throughout the years, throughout the centuries, or maybe even since the beginning of time. Why has the ego been persecuted over the years? Why does it have a bad reputation? Why do we hear talks of the ego in spiritual circles and, spiritual communities, that the ego is the bad guy, that we need to destroy the ego, or eliminate the ego, or even transcend the ego to reach some kind of enlightenment, or be set on the right path, or whatever the explanation? If you also view the ego in this light, and you see it through the bad guy lens, then I want to challenge your thoughts in this episode. I want to challenge these old ways of thinking and these old ideas around the ego and offer you a fresh, new perspective. Something that is going to help you a lot in your life and on your specific journey. But first, hello, my name is Patil, and I want to help you get your power back by freeing your mind and healing your heart. All right, the ego. Something interesting about us humans is that we tend to attack something we don't fully understand. And I get it, it could be a defense mechanism or that we're trying to protect ourselves from some kind of danger or threat or potential harm or any negative consequence that may come our way. That's understandable. And the ego is definitely at the top of the list. We just want to attack it because we don't fully understand it. So, what is the ego? Here's how I want to put it. Think of the ego as a container. It is a container that has a label on it that says me, my, mine. So it is like this box or this vault that contains within it anything, any piece of information that is connected to the self. To give you examples, my feelings, my experiences, my dreams, my ambitions, my shadows, my fears, my wants, my needs, my preferences, my desires, my thoughts, my beliefs, my identities, my possessions, my stuff, my money. You get where I'm going with this? So anything that gives you any kind of information about the self, that reflects anything about the self, is part of the ego. It goes into the ego container or the ego vault. Now, here's an interesting bit about the container. I'm calling it a container. It's not actually a container, but just to paint you a very clear image, a clear picture. The contents of the container, what's inside of this ego container, they are in a constant state of change. They are not set in stone. For example, with time and experience, your feelings can change, your attitudes can change, your beliefs or thoughts about something specific can change, your preferences can change, your music taste can change. Even the stuff that you own can change. You can throw some stuff away. You can modify certain things, add certain adjustments to them. You can buy new stuff. They are always changing. And what's even more interesting is that inside of your ego, or this ego container, you have something that is very specific to you, and that is your identity. And your identity can also change. In fact, it does change. It is never stagnant. It's never fixed. It changes. Because you are an expansive being. You cannot stop growing. You cannot stop evolving. You cannot stop experiencing life. You cannot stop learning. So you're always out there, you're collecting information and you're interacting with the world. I talk about this in depth in episode 6, I believe, when I discuss the symbol of God. So if you want a deeper, more detailed explanation, you can listen to that one. So you're an expansive being. your identity changes with all of these things. And not just that, you also have multiple identities. You don't just have one. You're not just one thing. You're so many things because we are multi-layered, multifaceted beings. We're very complex. To give you an example on identity, for instance, I am a teacher, I'm a coach, I'm a healer, I'm also a woman, I'm a forever student of life, I'm a human being. I'm not just one thing, I am all of these things combined, and I'm sure there are so many other different identities and different versions of me that are yet to be explored. They're yet to be discovered. And the same thing can be said about you. So like I said, anything that reflects something about the self, that gives any kind of information about the self, material or immaterial, goes into the ego vault. It's part of the ego container. It's part of the self. The contents of the ego container, your ego container, they're very specific and they're very unique to you. Just like the contents of somebody else's ego container, they're very specific and unique to them. This is what makes you, you. When we talk about the human experience and we talk about this 3D physical plane, this is a contributing factor. The contents of your ego container contribute to what makes you, you. Of course, it's not the only thing because you also have a divine nature, but that's what makes you, you. And that's what makes them, them. That's what makes me, me. I like to think of it as a tapestry. And you have all these thousands and millions of threads that come together and they make up the tapestry. If I remove just one thread, no other thread can, compensate for that space, can try to take that space, can try to fill that void. That is very specific to that one specific thread. It's very unique to that thread. And we're exactly the same. So if the ego is this thing that is housing all of the different expressions of you, the different things that make you you, then where's the problem? Yeah? What seems to be the issue? Why are we making such a big deal out of this? Especially, in spiritual circles, where we just want to tear the ego apart. We want to rip it to shreds. It's like we want to lock it up, put it in a box, put that box in a bigger box, and the bigger box in the biggest box that you can find, and throw it out into the ocean. And of course, the key would be inside the box. So why are we giving the ego a lot of negative meaning? Isn't that the golden question? See, the ego is not the bad guy, but it gains its not so bright reputation when attachment is part of the equation. When we talk about attachment. So your ego is not the enemy. Attachment may be. Let me tell you why. I want to talk about 3 main consequences that I've noticed that come from attachment, so that we can have a very clear distinction between the ego and the attachment. They are not the same thing. We already defined the ego, and we talked about the ego in depth. But what happens when we are attached to any of the things that we have inside of the container? The first consequence of attachment is limitation. This is what happens. When we attach ourselves to anything that's inside of the ego container, it could be a belief, an ideology, a thought, an idea, anything. What we do is that we limit ourselves. For example, if you have attached yourself to this one specific way of thinking, one specific way of living or experiencing life, one specific way of being, then you will not see all the other infinite number of possibilities that exist around you. They're all around you. They're infinite. You will block them out. You will have tunnel vision on this one specific way of whatever it is, you fill in the blanks, and everything else will be blocked by your mind, will not be accepted by your mind. You do not welcome anything else, subconsciously or consciously, and you limit yourself. So that's the first consequence of attachment. The second consequence of attachment is suffering. I'm sure you've heard of this saying that attachment is the root of all suffering, right? I think the Buddha said this, and that is 100% accurate. When you're attached to something, to any of the things inside of your ego container, then you create unnecessary, needless suffering for yourself. For example, let's say that you're attached to your car, you're attached to your money, to your apartment, to your living space, to your clothes. Or let's say that you're attached to people, yeah? You can be attached to your parents, you can be attached to your partner, you can be attached to your children, if you have any. So, when you're overly attached to something, you kind of suffocate the energies. You don't allow this life principle to flow freely into their experiences, into both your experiences combined. Because your attachment impedes this flow, creates obstacles. Just let it breathe. Don't suffocate the energies, you know? No child wants to be suffocated like that. If you're a parent and you have a child, what happens when you're overly attached? You're constantly watching their every move. You're hovering over them. You're monitoring their every step. That energy is felt by the child and they don't like it. They don't respond well to that. You don't allow the potential that's within them to come to fruition, to be fully expressed. And no, I'm not saying be careless and don't show any kind of intervention. Don't interfere. That's not what I'm saying. But when you're attached energetically in this way, you're not letting these things breathe. You are not enjoying them. You are not exchanging energies with them. You're trying to control them or control the outcome that is related to them. Whatever the outcome is, you're trying to control that. And you create resistance. You create unnecessary blocks. Now, this is not to say that don't communicate when things are not to your liking, when something happens that bothers you, whether it's something that your partner said, or a behavior or something that your child did, or something that your parents also did or said. No, communicate. It doesn't mean stop exchanging energies with them. Quite the opposite. It is quite the opposite. But don't possess. Don't control. Don't come from a place of arrogance. Don't act from a place of arrogance. That's the difference. See, life is meant to be exchanged. Yeah? It's meant to flow. It's always meant to flow. It's all about this ebb and flow, this give and take. It's all about the ups and downs. There has to be movement. There has to be constant exchange, constant flow, constant balance between discipline and surrender. So it's like a wave. It's always moving. It's always in motion. So when you're attached, that's what happens. You create needless suffering. Which brings me to the third consequence of attachment. When you attach yourself to these things, to anything inside of the ego container, then you self-sabotage. It sounds counterintuitive, but that's exactly what you do. You self-sabotage because now it becomes a matter of defending what you have inside the vault, and it becomes a matter of you being right instead of you being happy. Let me give you an example. This is probably not the best example, but it's one that's on my mind right now. Let's say that you have two people. You have person X and person Y. And let's talk about fashion. Let's say that person X is into the hippie fashion style. So they like baggy clothes, loose clothes, flowery patterns, flowy designs, flagrant flashy colors, clothes that are made of natural fibers like cotton and hemp. So that is their style. And let's say that you have person Y, and they're into a more formal wear, formal attire. For example, they like suit and tie, and to have that expensive watch, or to wear that elegant dress and to have all those, shiny accessories and all of that. So you have X and Y, two different people with two different identities, two different fashion styles, and two different expressions of the self. This is what happens when there's attachment. If person X or person Y, either of them, if they're attached to their way of showing up in society, their preferences when it comes to clothing and fashion, and their way of thinking that is attached to their choices, what happens is, in this case now, instead of agreeing that both expressions are beautiful, both, fashion senses are lovely, they can both coexist, now it becomes a matter of mine is right, yours is wrong. Mine is as an advocate of life, it's me being free, it's being liberal, yours is being restricted, it's being corrupted, and all the other meanings that come with it. It really depends on the people projecting these meanings onto these different fashion senses or styles. So it becomes a matter of wanting to be right rather than wanting to be happy. So you self-sabotage in this way. So you are saying no to anything that's different than you. You're rejecting anything that's different from you. You're dismissing it. Your mindset is narrow. It's not one of abundance. It's one that has a lot of limitations in it, a lot of judgment in it, not much room for acceptance and expansion. And that's how you self-sabotage. And you're not just sabotaging yourself, but you're also sabotaging, I just want to say, that any potential connection that you may form with other people, with other beings, other forms of life. When we talk about the ego in this way, in this light, yeah, I am 1,000,000% on board. I can see why the consequences of it can be troublesome. Because at the end of the day, just like you have shadows, you are not the shadows, right? You are the light. You are the spiritual being who has shadows. The light who has shadows. You are not the shadows. The same idea, the same principle can be applied here. That you are not the ego. You are the spiritual being who has an ego. And like I said, the ego, all the things labeled me, my, mine, that's the container. It's anything that reflects something about the self, that gives any kind of information about the self. That's what it is. Now, if that didn't convince you, then I want to share with you a download that I got a while back. In fact, it's not even a while back. I got it a couple of weeks ago, but I wasn't ready to talk about the ego back then. If you've been listening to my talks then, you know that I always listen to my intuition and it wasn't ready. That was not the time to talk about the ego. So I'm so happy that I have a more complete picture now. The pieces clicked beautifully together. The puzzle is complete in my mind and I want to share my download with you. And this one is on the 7 planes of existence. Now, you may come across different numbers when it comes to the planes of existence. Some people may say that we have 12 planes of existence. Others might say 9, maybe 105, endless, infinite number of planes. Sure, but I want to focus on 7. Just like you have many, many chakras in your body, but we focus on the 7 key ones because they align very beautifully along the spine. They're strategically positioned along the spine in the body. So let's focus on 7 for now. I want you to picture a thermometer in front of you, yeah? Just like you have a scale that's vertically positioned in front of you, that's how I want you to see the 7 planes of existence. You have high frequencies and high vibrations. The higher up the scale you go, right? The higher up the, let's say, the planes of existence you go, you are going to find more refined, higher, lighter, more advanced frequencies, right? And the lower down the scale you go, the lower down the planes of existence you go, you're going to find denser frequencies, heavier energies, right? Lower vibrations. That's just how it is. Now, at the very bottom, I want you to imagine, so the first plane, I'm going to start from the bottom up. The first plane that you have is the one that it's visible to us. We see it. We perceive it with our five senses, it's the physical plane or the material plane. The second one is the astral plane or the emotional plane. Now, I do want to say that each of these planes basically has two divisions, so they can further be divided into two categories. For instance, the physical has the physical and the etheric. But I don't want to complicate it. There's really no need. It's not fitting for today's conversation. So like I said, the first one is the physical. Second one is the emotional. The third one is the mental. The fourth one is the Buddhic plane or the intuitive plane. If you don't know what that is, it's the seat of the soul. Then we have the atmic plane or the spiritual plane. That's the fifth one. The sixth one is the monadic or the divine plane. And then the last one, you have the logoic plane, or let's say the plane of oneness. Now you're going to come across different names for these, but that's not the point that I'm making. The point is this. At the very top of that scale, of the 7 planes of existence, like I said, you have oneness. You have togetherness. You have unity. And at the very bottom, which is basically the first plane, the physical plane, you have diversity, differentiation, segregation. So the lower down the scale we go, you will come across denser frequencies, heavier energies. And the higher up the scale you go, you're going to find finer, lighter, higher, more refined, more advanced frequencies. Now let's give this scale, the 7 planes of existence, a shape, a geometrical shape. And I want you to picture it as a pyramid. What do you notice? The two sides of the pyramid, the higher up the pyramid we go, the closer to the top of the pyramid we go, you're going to find that these two sides, they're coming closer and closer. They're coming together. They are converging until they meet at a singular point at the top of the pyramid, the apex of the pyramid. That is where you have oneness, you have togetherness. This is why in spiritual planes, in the higher planes of existence, we are all connected. We are all one. There is unity, there's togetherness, there's oneness there. And what do you notice? The lower down the pyramid we go, you're going to notice that it's getting fatter and fatter. The two sides of the pyramid, they're getting further away from each other. They are diverging at the base. They're diverging. They're growing apart. Yeah? And what do you have at the base? At the base, you have individual expressions. If you had oneness at the top of the pyramid, you're going to find individual expressions down below at the base. You're going to find individuals, people, different expressions of life, different expressions of consciousness, different expressions of the one infinite intelligence, the one universal mind, the creator, whatever name you resonate with. I know some people, they may be allergic to the name God, so it doesn't have to be God. Whatever name you feel comfortable with. So you have diversity. And since you have individual expressions, different individual expressions, each expression or each human being will have their own ego, their own, pieces of information that reflect things about the self. So if we have oneness at the very top of the pyramid, on higher spiritual planes, we have the self and the different expressions of the self at the bottom. When I got this download, I'm like, my God, isn't that beautiful? Isn't that wonderful? It's kind of like saying you are walking into a garden and you see all these different flowers in front of you, different colors, different fragrances, different, shapes, different needs. Not every flower or every plant life has the same need, different species of the plant kingdom in front of you. You don't go ahead and say that this flower is better than the other one, or that this, species of plants is more da-da-da-da-da, whatever, you fill in the blanks than the other ones. No. You just see that these are the different expressions of the self. They're all wonderful. They're all part of the same garden. They all belong to the same garden. And that's exactly how we are. We're no different. That was my intention with this episode, to give you a better understanding of the ego. a more profound understanding of the ego and what it does, what it is. If you've been listening to my talks for a little while, you know that I'm not an advocate of categorizing something as bad. Because usually, for the most part, what happens is that when we don't understand something, we like to tear it apart. We like to villainize it. We like to, try to destroy it. I'm not an advocate of that. That is not a message that I share with you on any of my episodes. In fact, I'm an advocate of understand something, because if it's in the nature of something to behave a certain way, there's really no need to condemn or to criticize it. Understand it, come from a place of compassion and openness, and work with it. Work with it. The ego is no different. Remember, you are not the ego, you have one. And it's not the enemy. But if you're attached to any of the things within the vault of the ego, then you know of the consequences. Thank you so much for listening. I tremendously enjoyed this episode. I've been talking for a good minute here. And I really enjoyed this episode. I do want to say that these are my thoughts. There's my. These are my thoughts, by the way. If you resonate with them, great. They're your messages. If not, then you can let them go with love. If you like content like this, then you can absolutely subscribe to my podcast. I release episodes once a week, every Monday. And you can also subscribe to my YouTube channel if you're into spirituality, alchemy, empowerment, and manifestation, because my approach is holistic. If you need my help and you want to work with whatever's preventing you from stepping into your full power, whatever the situation, then you can sign up for coaching with me. I am offering coaching right now, and you can check out the packages. It's in the description box below. So you can go with email coaching with me. It's a package where you get to send me an unlimited number of emails around anything. The instructions are super clear on the website. You can go for phone calls with me, more interactive sessions, once a week or twice a week. Or you can sign up for a singular session with me, an extensive, immersive session around any subject, so that we can best approach it for you and help you get your power back. I'm also going to put my email. If you have any questions about any of this, then you can send me an email. Remember, you are not the ego. It's kind of like saying you are the clothes that you're wearing. No, you're not. That's an extension of you. It's a different expression of you. You are the spiritual being, an infinite spiritual being, a very powerful infinite spiritual being who happens to have an ego. And that is okay. That's part of life. As always, you are in it, but you've already won. Till next time.